listening to the Orchestra Teacher Podcast. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Orchestra Teacher Podcast. Dr. Charles Laux here with a guest who has done some awesome things, and I cannot wait to introduce you to her. This is episode 105, and we have special guest Miss Annie Ray, who is the Orchestra Director at Annandale High School in Fairfax County Schools in Virginia. Welcome, Annie, to the Orchestra Teacher Podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me. I've been looking forward to this.
Same. We met... I guess I asked you about this maybe before ASTA. It's been busy, and we're finally got it scheduled. So thank you so much for being here. The year is winding down, the school year, and so I know you're just wrapping up your concert and banquet and things at Annandale. But before we get into all those nuts and bolts, could you just tell us a little bit about like where you're from and what your instrument and all the great things that you're doing? The Orchestra Teacher Podcast is sponsored by Kaleidoscope Adventures. Recruiting and retaining talented musicians is essential for new orchestra directors building a program. And one of my favorite tips for generating interest is to plan a trip. There are so many options. You can participate in a festival at an amusement park, take the stage at Carnegie Hall in New York City, or travel abroad and perform in Vienna, the legendary city of music. Wherever you end up, not only will your current students look forward to the trip, but younger students will count the days until it's their turn to go. If you have no idea where to start, connect with Kaleidoscope Adventures by visiting the link in the show notes. They've been planning exceptional performance travel since 1993 and will make you look like a seasoned professional.
Yeah, wow. So yeah, I live up here, right outside of DC now. My husband's in Pershing Zone, United States Army Band. He's a euphonium player. Oh. So when a low brass player, especially a euphonium player, gets a job, you move.
You move for the euphonium player.
You move, and it's his dream job. And we've absolutely fallen in love with the area. Both of us are born and raised in Texas, though. Oh. I am from the Dallas area, and my husband's from the Houston area, so we secretly hate each other. But absolutely fallen in love with the area up here in the DC community, and moving here changed my life in so many ways. Completely took my life in a way different direction than I ever would have imagined, especially with how I've evolved as an educator and what these communities have taught me. But I'm really lucky that I grew up really grounded in a music family. Every single one of us plays a musical instrument. I started piano when I was 3, harp when I was 5, and got to play all the string instruments. And in college, in addition to my harp performance degree, going through my education degree at University of North Texas, they allowed me to take secondary lessons on all of the instruments all the time. Great. So I got to really dive in deep with each of them, and I appreciate that now.
Yeah. So harp is your main instrument, and there aren't that many harp teachers in the country. I mean, how many would you say there would be public school to harp teacher that their principal instrument is harp and they teach orchestra?
Well, actually, it's so funny because one of my high school directors growing up was that exact situation. Her name is Megan Goman, and she was primarily a harpist, but a fantastic pedagogue on podium. And a lot of my inspiration of like knowing I can do this came from her.
That's great.
And she offered this like incredible perspective of going through and learning this process of the instruments as an adult or like a older student, how much perspective it gave to her to connect with her students. But it's also makes me like I said, very well versed like on all 4 instruments on the podium. I feel very comfortable teaching all of them and don't feel much fear about teaching any of them.
But a lot of us have fear about teaching the harp, that's for sure, including myself.
Which that's a whole other project I'm working on. I'm like trying to get that.
Yay.
There's so much similarity that people don't realize. So if you ever want a lesson, let me know.
Well, definitely. That would be really cool. Okay, so you moved to DC how many years ago now?
Oh my gosh. Back in 2017 is when I moved. Yeah.
And
Which like doesn't feel that long ago when you say the date, but then I realize it's 2025 and I'm like, where's time?
Wait, and we talked a little bit about our kids, but just wait till you see that in 2017 my kids were like this big, and now they're big. One of them is bigger than me.
Oh God, don't tell me that. That's heartbreaking.
So that goes fast.
I'm like in a mess over my oldest turning 4. So
yeah, well, just wait till they're 15 and over 6 foot tall and wear a 14 shoe. That's when it gets crazy. That's my oldest. Yeah. So this is fantastic. And then at Annandale, how long have you been at Annandale? Is that since?
I'm finishing up my 5th year at Annandale. It's my 5th year at Annandale.
COVID.
I did. My first day of meeting all of my students was like virtual, and like I just like brought up the Google Meet, and it's literally just all black screens, and I'm
Ta-da.
like, excellent. But the really beautiful thing about this is I actually had been in this community. Like when I first moved to Virginia, I was at the elementary school that feeds students to the high school, and then I went to one of the middle schools that feeds some students into the high school, and then I'm here. So a lot of these students, I have really close relationships. And like I said, coming from Texas, where I was very in like the middle school and high school teaching scene, and being then chucked in elementary once a week lessons, I was like, what is happening?
Yeah,
but
those are so tough. Grateful. Can you tell us about that shock that you had when you and you were in Texas and you're used to like every day and everything's bigger in Texas, and then you go and you're teaching one day a week. Will they pull out lessons from regular classes?
Yeah, and every school up here in Fairfax County does elementary strings a little bit different, just based on the principal's schedule for the school and everything. So I was at 5 different schools, and one of them was Annandale Terrace Elementary School. And I remember walking in that first day into this single wide trailer, and I had just come from the Plano school districts and being like, what the heck? And but I loved it because we only had 30-minute classes, and it made me so efficient. Like it was no talk, all play. And I would use my piano skills to just like vamp, and like class kept going. I was never not playing the piano and just getting kids to play.
Like a lounge singer in there.
Literally, I would do like this cute little like I'd be like giving instructions, but because I kept playing and I was just going quick, the kids were like right there. So I appreciate, I appreciate what it did for me, teaching me to be a better pedagogue.
Yeah, that pacing element. When I taught elementary strings in Ohio, we had the 30-minute lessons, and right after a break, it was you spend 10 minutes tuning all the violins, and then you have a very short class, right?
Yeah, so. Well, what I would do is I would have hallway duty, and so I'd stand outside, and as the kids would walk by, I would like grab their instrument and like tune it for them, or I would make them do like their karate strings, like belts for me, like in the hallway. And I remember this like administrator who I have a great relationship with now. She came by and she like took a picture, and she goes, "This is an educator who squeezes out every instructional minute." And I'm like, "Yeah, because you only give me 30 minutes."
Right. I have to, because I have only 30 minutes. I
literally have to use the hallway right now.
That's fantastic. Okay, and then so I know a big thing happened. Was it last year, where you were nominated for a Grammy, and then you were a finalist, and then you won Educator of the Year?
Yeah, absolutely crazy. And people don't believe me when I tell that I never thought in a million years like I would win. And even going through the process, I'm not very active on social media, but even at that time, I was even less active because I was freshly postpartum with my second baby. Right. And so I would like find out from a friend would be like, "Oh my gosh, look, like this is posted. You're like a semifinalist, or you're like a final." And I'm like, what is happening? And I didn't pay much attention to it until I get this. I found out that I won, because the winner finds out in advance for it being announced. And both of my girls were both epically melting down, like when they called and told me, and they were like, I'm talking just scream crying, and they were so sweet. I'm like, "Your girls sound so excited for you." And I'm like, "They sure are."
They had no idea.
Absolutely no idea. And I hung up the phone, and I was like, "Did I just win a Grammy?" And it's been just nonstop ever since.
Right. So like it was just like they was announced and boom, like how many like people reached out to you? We want to interview you. We want you to be on, were you on like TV or magazines? Tell us a little bit about what happened.
Yeah. I mean, when it was first announced, my phone it kept on restarting because of how many people were reaching out and messaging me, and having that overwhelming feeling of support was everything, because it was like this interesting juxtaposition, like I said, coming back from maternity leave, also in this time of like you're like in a cocoon, you're really at home and insulated, and then like trying to get the year going again, and then this is happening and balancing, like trying to figure out 2 kids and this. But every single Grammy winner has had a different experience and a different outcome from it, and I think that's incredibly beautiful. And mine really took off in like a very interesting direction, in terms of public speaking, in terms of advocacy work, in terms of, well, of course, a lot of like music clinicians and stuff, but a lot of the big stuff has been keynoting for non-music education specific conferences.
Yeah, that's gotta be challenging. Do you find it challenging, or are you just kind of doing bigger picture things, or how music impacts you, or what do you address in that?
I don't find it challenging, because when I talk, I don't share my story. I share my students' stories, the ones who've given me permission. And that's easy to do because they inspire me every day to do these projects and these extra things. And they teach me more than I will ever teach them. And so I'm just sharing what they have and what they have to tell the world. And Annandale is this really interesting school. It's a very historically resilient population of students, 66 different countries represented there, 59 different languages, and about 70% of students fall below the poverty line. And when you're working with all of these cultures that might not otherwise like each other very much outside of America, or even in America, to be frank, like in our classroom, they're making music together and coming together, and it's a very like human thing.
Very cool.
Yeah, so I work with music or non-music education conferences and stuff, and I'm talking about what it means to be a student-centered classroom, what it means, like what does the arts teach beyond the notes and rhythms on a page, the importance of like battling chronic absenteeism through identifying student belonging and placement, and what does it mean for students to really be the driver of a classroom. And it's not like a student-driven classroom isn't they pick the repertoire or anything like that. A student-driven classroom is where you've developed intrinsic learning to the point of like you found out that they're scheduling a rehearsal during their study hall block and you didn't know about it. And that's just normal to them. And those are the things that I speak about and push through and work with administrators on. So it's been such a gift.
That's really awesome. Really awesome. I love it. I love it. Yeah. So life-changing experience. Just I say that I'm always like living 4 lives right now is what I say. But the important thing for me is staying really grounded in the classroom. It's what fulfills me. It's where I feel most alive creatively on the podium. But then I do love these speaking engagements and opportunities to connect with so many people too, because the world needs to hear what's happening at Annandale. That's really awesome. Very cool. Tell us about your program and kind of how it's set up, and then some of the the special things that you do to, I guess, do what you do. Because obviously it's special. It's not the average classroom, and you're not the average teacher. So, tell us about like the program, and then.
That's really kind of you to say, but like the important thing is, the Grammy winners have all said this, where we all deal with a lot of imposter syndrome. And a part of it is because so much of music education comes from our mentors, our colleagues who inspire us, those that our lineage of teacher that comes before us. And I'm really lucky to have some people who have really invested heavily in my life. And I hope I'm able to make them proud and give back and honor their name. But Annandale's great. I have 6 orchestra classes there, your traditional setup classrooms, and then I have an orchestra called Crescendo Orchestra, which is my orchestra for students with significant and severe disabilities. And we meet on a block schedule. The entire school does, so we meet 80 minutes every other day, just like every other classroom. And the motto of it is inclusion through like the right to having a quality music education, not just social inclusion,
Sure.
but meaningful. You are playing the violin,
Right.
You are playing the cello, you are playing the bass, and you're learning it. And I'm writing the curriculum for who's in front of me every year. So I have that. And then we have an after school project called Parent Orchestra. And that is inspired by my dear mentor and friend, Brian Coatney. He's now at Wiley High School. And I was so lucky to study under him as his student teacher when he was in Plano.
Wow. Okay.
And he's founded this idea, and we would just bring in community members, and it was one of the most meaningful things to me as a student teacher. And then coming up here into Virginia and having our parent orchestra, we started with in 2018 with about 30 parents who had never played a musical instrument before in their life, and now we have over 225 caregivers plus a wait list, and we have 12 teachers. And it's been, again, like this more than just teaching parents how to play their instrument. So everything with my program is inspired by the idea of the Suzuki Triangle, the parent-teacher-child relationship, and bringing that all together. So hopefully those things all actually happen.
So you're just a little bit busy with your job.
Yeah, but I love it.
Well, of course.
But I really love it.
So you have 6 classes plus the parent group.
But the parent orchestra meets twice a month from 7 to 8. And Brian and I are partnering with bringing this idea around the country. But there's going to be a big push where anybody listening here or anybody out there can start their own parent orchestra or band or chorus or whatever, because we really do need to be bringing those caregivers and advocates into our programs to have an authentic experience.
It's only going to make everything better. It's gonna make their lives better. It's gonna make their kids' lives better. It's gonna make that's fantastic. Go ahead.
Yeah. And you get to like watch your colleagues teach, which like it's like the best experiential professional development ever, because like we're in our own silos, and I'll be watching one of my colleagues teach, and I'm like, that is a genius way to teach that, and then I'm stealing it and bringing it here. And it's the best thing you can do for your own self.
Like I would say, selfishly, you're getting a lot out of it too.
Oh, 100%.
Well, this is why I do this podcast too. It's a byproduct of it, and it's the most fun part about it is just learning and making me hungry to learn more from everybody.
Totally. And we bring our superintendent in every year. We bring strategic community members, and again, like Fairfax County Public Schools, I believe, is the 6th largest school district in the country.
Okay.
So we have caregivers who are in that 0.01% of like socioeconomic status, down to parents in my Annandale pyramid who, again, it's a very historically resilient population. And they're meeting and they're becoming friends in a world like they would have never met otherwise. And they're like going out and like getting dinner after. Or we were so lucky to go and present at the Midwest Band Orchestra Clinic this year, and I got to bring some of my parents to come perform. And there was a parent who wanted to go, and she confided in me that it was not in the budget. And then a different parent anonymously donated to pay for this mom to go and perform. And she had never left the state of Virginia. And it was just we had so much fun. It was the best time.
That is amazing. Yeah. To get to have that community integration, and it just would never happen otherwise.
And it's such an authentic place in the music classroom, and they get to experience it, and their kid gets to be the expert boss mom and dad around.
So do they ever end up doing a performance at all?
Oh yeah, Brian's groups do more than mine. He even takes them to a festival and everything. He has a smaller group. Wiley is a smaller area to pull from. And but we have our end of the year concert, and I'll have to send this picture to you later, but there's this picture of the son, and he was taking a picture of his mom on stage playing his cello, and he had to have been like a 5th grader, and he looked so proud.
Right.
And she was just beaming in her concert black, and it was so fun.
Oh my gosh, that sounds incredible. That sounds really
Yeah.
incredible.
It's always so inspiring and grounding.
Yeah. So we will share your contact information. Is that cool on the podcast
Oh,
description?
please.
Okay. So
Please.
we'll put that.
Anybody can reach out,
Yeah.
and Brian and I are happy to support and mentor people through. And that's going to come through in an official capacity through another organization soon. So
Good. Great.
We're excited about that partnership.
That is fun. That is fun. What are some of the things you do in your classroom day to day that you feel make an impact on your kids and keep them going? And I mean, when you have a lower SES, or that type of audience, those type of students, it's always challenging to overcome what's going on at home. And you don't. I mean, maybe they tell you, maybe they don't, but sometimes we can't imagine what our kids are going through, And even I'm in above average to high SES area. It's still kind of a mystery sometimes, and kids will have troubles, and then you're just like, wow, I never would have guessed that's happening or going on. But what are some of the things that you do to make your kids feel special and make your kids feel like they have a place? Because not every kid has a place at home.
No, and that's true. And like, for a great example of that is one of my very high achieving students is battling homelessness right now, is living out of a car. And that's not an uncommon reality. Or, of course, all the stuff going on with ICE, for example, is greatly impacting our area, especially with how close it is to kind of the epicenter of everything going right now. So it's a lot of things, but I think in my classroom, I tried to create an escape, and I tried to model not being afraid to be seen trying. So I think that my students said to me one year, made me like die laughing, but they said, what do they say? They called me chaotically something. I don't even remember what it was now, but like, I just tried to be very authentically me on the podium, which means like
chaos, or something like that.
No, it wasn't even that. I can't remember what it was funny. It was so funny with mildly unhinged. That's what it was. And but I try to be very like authentically myself on the podium and embody the joy that music gives me. And I think the fact that they see that I'm like a super major dork like allows them to kind of let the walls go down. And I always say like I hate a quiet classroom, so I just have like a big bag of Jolly Ranchers at the beginning of the year. I'm like, just talk to me, please.
Right.
I'm so bored if you don't.
Okay, so Jolly Ranchers.
yeah, Jolly Ranchers are key, but it's just like these silly things to get them to open up and start going. But but a lot of it is just like building a student's confidence in themselves. Like I said, the foundation of everything is to not be afraid to be seen crying. And with that, they have to feel confidence in themselves, and that comes through like building that intrinsic learning and that deep base of knowledge. And so I don't program like what is happening like at another school down the road or something. Like my colleagues are amazing, but we all have very different programs and different demographics that we're meeting, and I don't try to meet that standard.
Well, and that's the thing that I think I've fallen into it. I think a lot of teachers fall into it, is like, well, so-and-so down the road, they're playing this, so we should be at that level. Well, maybe we're not, and what people need to realize is that that's okay.
And it's not even about level. When we say level, that sounds like it can be a negative thing or something, right? I think musical excellence is something that everybody can experience and get to and push towards. So is it like a grade 4 piece, but played like musically excellent, everything perfectly.
So that's what
tuned?
I mean. Yeah, it's like I was talking about music level, but yes, exactly. Like you have to be able to take what you have and make excellence of it, whether it's a grade 2, grade 4, or grade 6. It doesn't matter.
And a student can feel the breathing together and the moving together and feeling the rise and the fall of a phrase and creating musical excellence. Like that is so important to me. That's like the most number one important for me, is like experiencing quality tone and going from there. So I am very strategic about how I schedule my year out and plan my year out. Like the first quarter is really about like finding the fundamentals, like where is everybody at, really drilling them, making sure they have like an independent understanding of everything. And I try to do it in fun environments. Like I mean, we sit in traditional seating, of course, to like learn, but then like many times, once a week or twice a week, I'll have them in like little quartets, or I'll have them circled up in sectional. So they're watching and learning how to breathe together, or we stand the entire class and around in a circle and arch, or I won't be on the, I don't get on the podium until 2 weeks before the concert, maybe. So I'm always walking around and letting them not be afraid of me coming and making a correction or touching a wrist with permission, of course, or or making adjustments and just embodying confidence in them. And that's where it comes to where like, okay, we'll have study hall block, and I walked into one of the large practice rooms, and all of chamber orchestra has shoved themselves in there and they're rehearsing, and it's being led by the bass player. And like, I just think that's what success is in a program, is where the students want to play so bad and they want to get something together so right that they won't even bothering you with it. Yeah.
That's awesome. How about can you tell us a little bit about how you go about planning your year? Do you have, you obviously you said first quarter was mostly technique. Then what? Are you just concert cycles, or you have other things that you include in there?
Oh, totally. I have concert cycles and things that do, like, I'm a big believer in students' ability to sight read. I think sight reading is like one of the most fundamental things that we can teach students how to do. And my husband is like a crazy good sight reader. So we do this joint presentation together, and we go to other schools and do it too, about, we call it like bridging the gap between band and orchestra, and how you can learn so much from each of us and combining and coming together. And so he always comes like flexes on the students earlier in the year about like how well he can sight read. And then he comes again and again, and I work with them with doing sight reading. But in terms of the cycle of the year, like the beginning of the year is like, breaking the ice, literally. And then just like making a core sound, like finding our core sound and building on technique. The second concert cycle in the winter is about like, okay, we're going to push this up the next level. Like, what's the next thing we're going to do? And it's a tight cycle. So we have to learn how to learn music quickly, like learning notes and rhythms quickly through those sight reading skills we've gained and the technique we've gained, and working on musical excellence. Assessment time, that's our UIL. If there's Texas listeners or whatever, we really push to solidifying the things that we pushed up in the winter concert cycle. My goal is for it to feel like a victory lap. And then the spring concert cycle, I always bring an artist in residence who is someone who's great at that's something I don't do. Like, I'm not a great improviser. I am very much classically musically trained and trying to get out of that. So I'll bring in,
who did you bring
for example,
this year?
Chris Bacon. He is a Grammy nominated hip hop beatboxer, and he will come in. He works with the kids on like improvisation and blending of genres and styles. I brought in the amazing Katie O'Hara-Labrie to live compose a piece in front of the kids and have them give her feedback. And that was the published piece Atoms, which is a J.W. Pepper editor's choice now. And then this year we had an electric string duo who came in and talked about music business, freelancing, how to go viral on social media, how to produce your own videos, and then they perform on the spring concert with us, and it's just a celebration. That is cool. I like that. I like the way that it's built up, and you have that, like you said, your assessment is a victory lap. That's really a way to think about it, because so many people make that like the most stressful thing in the world, right? Yeah. And I think if thinking about it as a celebration of what you've accomplished, and then and then you have the party at the end. Yeah, and that's the thing. If I try to set this, I'm lucky I get to kind of pick and choose like the groups that I want to go, and I choose the students who are the classes who are going to have a successful, positive experience with it, because it is a very stressful situation. And the classes, who are not ready quite yet for that, feeling that success and feeling super confident coming on stage and sure of what they know and ready to show it off. Instead, like I bring in clinicians to work with them midway through that concert cycle before a pre-assessment, so they can learn the art of refinement and taking that, because that's the problem with like assessment or UIL. You get the feedback and then it's like, well, now what? Like, we've been playing this music forever. Like, we're not going to go and work on this anymore. So I want those younger classes, the classes that need more encouragement, to go through the feedback cycle, like a genuine feedback cycle. versus just getting a score on stage.
What are some of the ways that you allow students to get that feedback, or how do you? I mean, you're listening to recordings, you're listening to judges' comments, or reading the sheets. But do you have some? What are some strategies you use for that feedback piece?
I mean, the most core one is student feedback. So peer feedback. And we break that down really quickly. So I'm a firm believer in, I use the word playing test, even though I really don't really see them as that. I do 3 every concert cycle, but the kids come and play one-on-one for me. And they're like mini lessons. And like, I get to know a student so well in that in-person, face-to-face relationship versus a virtual one, but they get to resubmit as many times as they want up for a full score up until the concert.
How often do you get to do that one-on-one assessment?
So I do it 3 times a concert cycle, and while that's happening, and while they're doing that, or coming in with me one-on-one, I have them all circled up in their sections, and I give them what I call a guided sectional sheet. So I choose one student from each section to lead that guided sectional, and they go through the entire piece, like, or all of their pieces, rehearsal number to rehearsal number, and they mark down the ones that like aren't great, and then they practice it together, and they give each other feedback. And that's how I build that intrinsic learning of like, no, I know this well enough to help my friend or this person like I hardly know, but now I get to know because they're teaching themselves,
building community.
And I don't believe, again, like I work with a very historically resilient population of students, which means like a lot of them are working an after school job to support their families. They are the caregiver of their siblings, or they have a lot of weight going on at home. And so I can't expect them to practice at home. And I can't expect them to do after school sectionals. So
you got to build it in.
I have to build it in. And that is the most authentic way I have watched it happen, is where they gain confidence in themselves by teaching one another. And that's when they're able to take the program for me and make it run.
Well, it's intrinsic motivation. It's refinement of the learning process, because when they say, like if you teach somebody, you're gonna internalize it more, and you're gonna understand it more, and it's gonna be inside of you. So that's
And the older students help the younger students and get that confidence in there. But I'm not going to lie. The first concert cycle, every single of those guided sectionals is bribed. So they get their summative, they get their test grades from their playing test, but they also get the formative, which is the daily grade for turning in the guided sectional sheet complete. But I say the best guided sectional I hear, which section it is, that section wins cookies, or that section wins chips, or whatever. Everybody gets Takis, and they just go crazy for it. Because then it also becomes a little competitive too, are the cellos going to do a better guided sectional than the violins, or the violin ones or the violin twos? And it's so funny watching those personalities develop through that.
For sure. This is all great stuff. I know everybody out there is probably eating it up just as much as I am, but how about assessment besides these things? I mean, how many students do you have in your classes? Are they large?
They're large. Okay. They're large.
And you're able to get to them you have an 80-minute period, but it's only twice a week, right?
It depends on the week.
2 or 3 times.
Twice, 3 times. But yeah, I can get through every single one of them, because a kid knows that as soon as I'm done with the next kid, the kid's walking up, the next one's walking in. So I always have someone on deck. But they get this. This is inspired by Dennis Langevin. He's my other mentor. He would have this rubric at the top, and then he would have the music photocopied on the bottom of the sheet. And you would just mark on the rubric and the music as they went.
Music as they played.
And then they get it back, and so they get immediate specific feedback of what they need to work on.
That's a really smart idea. I mean, it takes a lot of planning, obviously, to do that, and you got to make the copies for all the kids that are,
that's what my orchestra leadership is for. Yep. So I just give it to them in advance, and they make it, and I don't touch any of that stuff. It's all just automatic, where a kid hands it off to me, and I say thanks, and then I do the playing test. I enter in the scores as the tests are going.
Yeah. So you don't
and
have to
it's
do
no
later.
Extra time.
Yeah.
And it's unbelievable how much the kids level up after each one. And it's not from practicing for the playing quiz, it's from the guided sectionals.
Wow.
So yeah, I love that model, even though sometimes it's exhausting. Like the
I was
third
going to
side.
say that sounds like it's very tiring.
But these mini private lessons, that's what I call them. It's like mini private lessons. It is so important for getting to know a student one-on-one. And that's like one of the things I'm most proud of is the fact that most of my students, I would say about 98% of them, stay with me from freshman to senior year.
That's a great retention rate.
It's very intentional relationship building, even if by the third one for the concert cycle, I'm like, if I have to listen to one more play.
Right. Yeah, this is awesome. I just love the way you're able to reach every kid and how intentional it is and how it just shapes them. You know, the formative is just awesome. Very cool.
Thanks.
Yeah.
It's good. But again, it comes from my mentors and my colleagues around us. Like my colleague, Alexandra Blaine, she and we came up with the guided sectional concept together when we were teaching at Glasgow Middle School together, and we both use it still. But again, it's those things like we are so lucky to be surrounded by like such great community and people that inspire us. So
yeah. How do you handle your orchestra leadership? How do you choose them? Or are they elected? Or and how does that work? And how do you how often do you meet with them? And what are some of the things you do with your leadership?
Well, that's always interesting. It changes year to year. So I have like orchestra managers who have like an extra period and they stay with me and they help.
Nice.
They're like my office aides. Again, that's still that idea from Dennis Langevin. So helpful. And then my orchestra leadership is elected. But whatever orchestra leadership does, it's up to them, like what the year looks like. It could be nothing. It could be everything. They set up the bare minimum is they have to set up and tear down for every concert, but that's the whole program. They do all of that automatically. They make the program, all those sorts of things. But the ideal one is when they start reaching into the middle school and volunteering at the middle school concerts, and then they also go to the elementary, because it's so important for us to grow and nurture that entire
the
pyramid.
whole unit. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's up to them because I don't have the bandwidth to handhold them through this. But I set them up for success by teaching them how to forecast dates, how to be organized, because that's the biggest thing that I think we're missing in public education. A lot of the times is very basic life skills of being able to be like, okay, the project is due on this date, which means that I need to send out the form on this date, which means that I need to start planning it on this date. And
well, I mean, we're in the procrastination society here, you know, and you make a due date of Sunday at 11:59, and kids are turning in at Sunday at 11:50 or 2.
I mean, did I not do that for this podcast form tonight also?
You're good.
But teaching the kids, like, we have to remember that, like, we're teaching so much more than notes and rhythms on the page. We're teaching a student how to keep a binder because everything's in their Chromebook now, Right. We're teaching them, and it's so easy to get frustrated when a kid's like, I lost another copy of music, but it's a learning opportunity when you say, okay, you lost a copy of music, what do you do next? And it's, okay, I scan the QR code requesting a new copy from the office aides to take care of. And then I go to the extra music folder and pull it out and I hole punch it myself and I put it in. And sometimes people might think it's a little elementary of me to do binder checks once a quarter at the high school level, but I'm checking to make sure that they write it in because nobody is teaching them these skills.
Yeah.
And we're not trying to create the next Yo-Yo Ma. We're trying to create fundamentally good people.
Right. Exactly.
Yo-Yo Ma is a great person.
Right. But it's not all about the C sharps and, getting the slurs and the shifting. I mean, that's great. Yeah. But most of the kids, I would say a lot of them aren't going to use those skills forever. But the skills that they will learn are those executive skills, the collaboration skills, everything that we're talking about here is just, what they need.
That's what I go and I talk to these ed conferences at and things. And to like pull the conversation here to talk about this, like, that's like one of, again, my proudest things in my journey as being a music educator is showing for example, my principal, who he is very open about this, is that he was not the biggest proponent of performing arts. When he hired me, he posted the job that I applied for, it was historically a full-time position. He had cut it to half-time and then posted it.
Oh.
And then he hired me for it. And it was this time of just growth together in a lot of ways. And the thing that he has said two things to me that have really stuck out, and he and I work together very closely now about this relationship building, is he said, the reason I changed my mind is because you showed me rather than tell me. I get told a lot of things, but you just genuinely showed me.
Proof is in the pudding. Yeah. Right. Like
And
you did it.
That we're teaching so much more than the notes and rhythms on a page. And he's now the Virginia Association of Secondary School Principals, president of that organization. And so
that's
I came and I did
person to have that in that role.
I know.
Now. Good job. Good job. All the Virginia teachers are happy now.
Yeah, I did a keynote for the organization right before he was elected. And I always have a data point that closes each chapter of my talks that I give. And my very final chapter and my very final data point was him. I didn't know what he was going to say. And he walked up there and he said, and shocked me, that your performing arts teachers are the strongest teachers in your school. And I was wrong. And to have him, this person who's willing to learn and grow and then explain why. And then we're really proud of Annandale because we went from one of the lowest achieving schools in the county to being one of the highest achieving schools, outscoring almost every school. For those who don't know and aren't a huge data nerd like me, I love data.
Okay.
And especially with like test scores and chronic absenteeism and like what the performing arts is doing. So every school, based on a school's free and reduced meal rate, gets you should be hitting this projected score on your standardized tests. And usually they're accurate. They can be fairly accurate. And Annandale was given like a low number. But Annandale did so well in English, math, and science after 2 years of what I'm going to explain in a second. 2 years of this, we outscored every single school, secondary school in Fairfax County Public Schools. In Fairfax County, which is the 6th largest school district in the country. And like numerically, we didn't score the highest, but outscored our projected, like what percentage did we outscore by. Sure. And all of that came from, instead of pulling students from electives for additional remediation, was strategic targeted intervention in keeping students in electives and then focusing on students' involvement intervention. Like, how do we get kids more involved? So they would do these activity days once a month where kids will do anything from like knitting club to like basketball to Best Buddies. We have a Dungeons and Dragons club or like Black Student Alliance, and like really empowering the kids and trying to find. We have a nail painting club, like, and the kids all get sorted into these things like based on like what they request and based on how students' attendance is. Yeah. And after only 7 of those in 1 year, they saw a 20% increase of students surveying from if they felt like they were seen as an individual at a school, just based on these activity days. That's amazing. This involvement intervention. Yeah. And then like very strategic targeted intervention that didn't pull from electives. And a lot of that came from this model that he was saying of performing arts students. If your student is a career arts student, it's shown between 30% to 50% lower chronic absenteeism than those students who are not in every single year that they have studied this in Virginia. So shout out to Anna Marie and the Virginia Department of Education for running this whole study. And it's so fascinating, in depth. They're willing to share it to everybody. So I'll share it to you for people to find. But yeah, it's been an absolute game changer. Wow. This is all the work you're doing is just so remarkable and so inspiring. And so thank you for that. I know you're it's like one of those. It's one of those things where like I tell people all the time, like, for example, like I know for a fact, like I'm not the only person who has a Crescendo-esque orchestra out there, or and even my Crescendo orchestra is rooted in my mom is a general music teacher.
Okay.
Like she's retired now.
Yeah.
So everything I have written and I write every year is in conjunction with asking my mom, like for her stuff.
You got a primary source there.
Yeah.
Right?
Combining it with like basic string pedagogy, but then these like incredible special education teachers and paras and occupational therapists who will spend like an hour with me after school teaching me like how to modify my materials so they mirror what's happening in their classroom, or coming up with a way for I'm just say Billy, it's just a generic name, how to get Billy to be able to hold the bow and produce like a tone or a sound. And that's why I always get really uncomfortable when people like say that, because these are things that people are doing every single day, and they are chronically underfunded, chronically overlooked, chronically understaffed, because the people just don't exist to hire for these things. And we can all learn so much from them if we just slow down. And that's the biggest thing. Like that's been the biggest gift from Crescendo, is it's made me a better educator for all of my classes, because everything I'm doing in there is just on a macro level from what we are seeing in a general education classroom.
Yeah. That reflection, but you know, you're taking that and just adapting it into everything else. It's amazing.
Thank you.
Cool. Very cool. Well, I've really enjoyed this conversation, and everybody, like I said, I'll leave Annie's contact information in the podcast description notes. Annie, thank you so much for being here. I know it's late. We scheduled this late because you're like, can we do this after my kids go to bed? I'm like, sure. I get it.
I try to be very like, when I'm home with my kids, I am home with my kids.
That's right. I mean, I record these days I don't have my children, and so that's when I get these podcasts recorded. But because otherwise, you know, it's their time. But thank you so much for being here. Thanks for inspiring us, and keep doing all those great things you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you again for having me.
Absolutely. For everybody out there in orchestra land, as we're wrapping up episode 105, Annie Ray, and thanks again for watching, and we'll see you all next time on the Orchestra Teacher Podcast. So long.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. You can support the work I do by hitting that like button and subscribing to the Orchestra Teacher Podcast YouTube channel and visiting www.orchestrateacher.net.